Join us for a special episode 19 of SSC Podcast as we look further into a very important expose done by Clive Linden of Generation X Gaming Club. We talk the state of journalism with him and go over the latest gaming news. So with no further ado, let's get into it.
Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me a matte all black truck. Oh, I'm not sorry.
What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? Let me do this. Let me hide that. Yes. What is going on, everyone? Thank you for coming. This is going to be a very special episode of SSC Podcast. I think our most important to date. I know I say that every week, but what we try to do here on this platform is not just, praise Stadia, and give them a blank check. And we try not to be just a cheerleading section, but we try to expand on people's knowledge base, and we try to dig deeper and deeper into the surroundings of the platform and why people are doing what they're doing, whether it's a positive thing or whether it's a negative thing. That's the platform that we try to be. And every time I think that we've reached a new plateau and that's where we're going to rest, somebody else, like the guy that I'm about to introduce here in a little bit, give me some time, he takes it to a whole nother level. And I'm like, oh, we got to go there. He raises the bar. And that's the great thing about this community, is that we got people that have tangible experience elsewhere, and they're doing some excellent things and letting everybody know what they need to know to be in the know. Say that fast 5 times. But I want to thank everybody for joining. Please tweet this out and let everyone know that we're live. Thank you, everybody on YouTube that is watching this, whether you're watching it live or on demand. I want to thank everybody that is watching this on Facebook, whether you're doing it live or on demand. Thank you for all of that. And I want to thank some special people that are listening. My good friend Debbie, I'll just say it like that. My good friend Debbie has been listening. I've been talking to them, been catching up with them. Someone from our Fortune 500 world days, so we've been chopping it up and hope you enjoy the content. All right. So with no further ado, because we know the deal. You guys are not here for me. You guys are here for the real talent. And I'm going to introduce them. My good friend, Clive Linden. Clive, how is it going?
It is going well. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be a good, exciting show. I'm looking forward to it.
This is going to be beyond good and exciting, man. This is going to be fantastic because, like I said, and again, I'm not trying to stroke the mane and and over exaggerate, but what you did for the community, I don't think the community quite understands how important it was for you to do that and capsulize the subject matter that we're talking about right now, which is the loss of journalism. You know what I'm saying? Now I know, Clive, that before we get into the nooks and crannies, everything, you did a lot of research. It's a lot to cover. I urge people to go and watch your videos so they're not lost in the sauce and they know what we're talking about. But did you want to elaborate on that before we go any further?
Okay, so I mean, ultimately what we're looking at here is the article by a certain Paul Tassi in Forbes, in which he quotes an interview with the president and CEO of Take2 International, and effectively says, and from that quote says, Stadia was a disappointment and not a game changer, and then continues with the sort of typical narrative that we've seen with many press stories. And for me, that it didn't sit quite right, because ultimately this is not what we hear from. I mean, you get lots of people, on Twitter or on Facebook, whatever, saying, "Oh, Stadia's not this, Stadia." But most of them are Game Boy fans. They're like PlayStation boys or Xbox, boys and girls or whatever, just gamers in general. But whenever you see people in the industry or developers talking about Stadia or publishers, they're usually talking in a positive manner. So it struck me that this is really odd. the CEO, one of the largest games publishers in the world, is saying effectively, based on this article, if you read this article and you take it at face value, Stadia is a disappointment and therefore it's not a game changer. I thought, well, that's a bit weird. Where is this from?
Yeah.
What else was said? Was there context to this? So I did a bit of digging and ultimately got to the point where I found the original interview. So it's not really an interview, sort of a question and answer session with Strauss Zelnick, the CEO, and listened to the whole 54 minutes. It's 54 minutes interview and question and answer about his business, about Take2 International's business. I sort of tried to get under the skin of, okay, who is the audience here? Who's he actually talking to? Which is important to understand, because it's important to understand the context. What's his business philosophy for Take2 International? What's his view about why Take2 International are different from other publishers? And therefore, maybe put some credence to why he says what he says. There's got to be a reason behind it, his view on certain things, and see what else he said to sort of see whether the article by Paul Tassi in Forbes, which has subsequently been sort of replicated across the piece by so many other media outlets, and with any facsimile, it gets worse.
Yeah,
you copy something over time, it gets worse and worse, like some sort of Chinese whisper. And the more articles I've read based on this article, which is based on another article, which is based on it, the worse and more distant from the truth these articles get. So that was my mission. I thought it just didn't sit right with me. So I thought, well, why don't I, and I never take for granted when you read in the papers and stuff, you read a quote. I always think, well, what's the context of that quote? Because it's easy to misquote people. It's easy to take quotes out of context. And I'm always very wary of that. So I thought, well, I'm going to find out, educate yourself. That's what you're taught in life, or you should be taught in life. Don't take stuff at face value. Go and find out for yourself. And if it's true, if it supports the case, fair enough. But the more I delved into it, the more I thought, this is not what's being said. And then the more I examined the Forbes article, the more I was thinking, no, this is not what Zelnick was saying. And what worries me, and we'll come to it later, is that it's these articles which are then we see repeated and regurgitated. In fact, regurgitated is a better word to use, I think, in these circumstances, because what's regurgitated is probably more closely resembles what was actually created. I.e., you eat a chocolate bar and then you regurgitate that. It doesn't look like anything like the original chocolate bar. Yeah. And this is what these articles are. And the repeats of these articles are regurgitations of a poorly written piece in the first place.
Well, here's the thing. Even though I believe I'm wholeheartedly with you in that belief, it was everything, because we've talked behind the scenes. I want to show everybody something. Now, you see this? This is a clock that we've made here at Stadia's Dosage. Time since Zelnick clarified statements. Now, everything that Clive has said is 1,000% right. And I really don't want to get into this right now, but I just want to make the public aware, because you're probably sitting there thinking, well, why, if what he's saying was misconstrued, why hasn't this guy jumped in front of this and said, wow, this isn't right? You guys are trying to poison and toxin our relationship. Well, there's a method to the madness. We may get into a little bit of it here, but just as a programming note, tomorrow I have plans to sit with Chase of Stadia Talk to go over that aspect of it, to the man behind Zelnick, because Zelnick is way bigger, as we know, Clive, than Take2 Interactive, you know. So we're going to get into that. But again, just so we're aware, just in case Mr. Zelnick forgets, it has been 5 days, 20 hours, 12 minutes, and 48 seconds since they distorted what he said, but he hasn't clarified it. So I just want to put that out there, But you know what, Clive? Let's do this. because people may be thinking, well, what's wrong with him saying that Stadia over a promise or anything like that? You know what I'm saying? So let's kind of go, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to reinvent the wheel unless you want to, because you laid this out in your video, and I don't know if we have enough time to go over that again, the whole thing. But what I would like to do is extenuate the thesis of it, which is why the way that the news articles reported this was false. And so without rehashing that, let's get into the meat and potatoes of their abhorrent behavior, and the way that they mixed up Zelnick's words. To clarify again, and you kind of alluded to this in your warm-up, who was he talking to again?
Yeah. Okay. So he was talking to the Bernstein Strategic Group. Who are the Bernstein Strategic Group? Well, they are effectively a group of equity investors. Take2 International were a few years ago were in serious financial trouble, despite the fact that they have Grand Theft Auto on their books and all those kind of stuff. The point is that kind of tilted their business model a bit, because they have like a massive success for a year and then it tails off, and then a few fallow years and then a massive success. And that's no really way to run a business. So Take2 had problems. A private equity came in, headed, I believe, by Strauss Zelnick, and Chase will tell you more about this when you talk to him about it. And a private equity group took over Take2 International and started to turn it around, come up with a certain business model that they would operate in. And so this interview is an interview by the Bernstein Strategic Decisions Group, which basically is for the benefit of equity investors. And they, every so often, they'll talk to major CEOs of companies to sort of get the lie of the land on that particular business, so that investors can make a decision about, okay, I think there's money in this, you know, in this thing called gaming, or whatever it is, in Take2 International, or whoever it is. So that was his audience. They're equity investors. It wasn't an audience of journalists. It's not an audience of consumers. It's an audience of investment business people, and it's a CEO of one of the largest interactive publishing companies in the world, telling them what their business philosophy is and how they see the business going forward. So that was the audience.
That's who the people he was talking to.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're talking about a wide variety of different things. And I didn't listen to the entire call, but
no, well, it's long. 54 minutes.
It's 54. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so Zelnick handles a whole bunch of stuff, including, and we'll get into a lot of this tomorrow, but whatever you want to bring up, Clive, including running CBS. A lot of people didn't realize that.
No,
he runs CBS.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Clive. Go ahead.
No. So, I mean, I saw Chase and Rock talking about that last night, actually, and that was a bit of an eye-opener. So he comes from a private equity sort of background anyway. So, but I think what was important though, so yeah, he was talking specifically about Take2 International, their business model, how they see the year going, how they see next year. You know, as you would for investors, you can talk up your company a bit. You talk about the differences between your company and your rivals. You talk about some of the big titles without being specific, because he made a big comment about how they never talk about unpublished titles. So obviously there was, you know, it wasn't a real sort of poking to try and find out when GTA 6 is coming out.
Exactly.
But it was briefly mentioned. But he shut that down straight away, because he said we won't talk about that. But he talked about, and I think it's important to understand, he talked about their business model, which I'll try and sort of encapsulate in as quick as way as I can. But basically for them, it's about creating, I mean, all publishers will say, oh, we're all about creating AAA titles or whatever. But for them, it's about creating the best AAA titles in the marketplace. Okay. And then you can debate whether that's right or not, but that's their business philosophy. And they don't release a product. So again, you could debate this as well. They don't release a product until it's ready. They're not somebody who feels pressured to have annual releases on certain titles. they'll wait to get it right. They'll admit when it's wrong. And he mentions WWE. I don't know that title, but and he said they went back to the drawing board on it. But generally, it's your Grand Theft Autos, Red Dead Redemption, to a certain degree, Borderlands 3, big titles. That's what they concentrate on. They've got 95 different titles in development across lots of platforms. So it's not just the classic platforms we think about. For instance, NBA Online is massive in China, and he talks about that as well. So, but it's about these massive AAA titles that will sell at the $60 or $70, $80 price mark. Yeah. And that keep that price. We know that Grand Theft Auto, its price stays pretty constant. Red Dead Redemption, its price stays pretty constant. And so in his view, the sort of people who buy those games are willing to buy 3 or 4 games a year, spend $60 or $70, I don't know what the equivalent is, but say $60 a year, no, $60 a game on those games. And on that basis, they're willing, those sort of people, so the people that buy their games, Take-Two games, are the sort of people who are willing to buy a console and a PC. Well, a gaming PC or consoles. So that's important. Sorry, that's an important factor to bear in mind for what he says later, because this is Take-Two's business model. The sort of people who buy their games are the sort of people who are going to buy consoles anyway.
Yep. So and to add to that, so Strauss was basically saying that at this moment, on June 4th, 2020, that his number one market are those that still fathom that, hey, my claim to fame, like you just said, is to buy a console. I ain't got to spend a whole bunch of money on a console, or buy a PC that's ready enough to play these games in order to access these games. Yeah, they're willing to do that. So that he's basically saying that that's his number one market. Not that that's his only market, right? Not that's the only market that he cares about, but that's his main market, correct?
Yeah. And it's also important to, so later on, and I'll come to it later on as well, that is the reason that he doesn't think an all-you-can-eat subscription service like, can we think of, i.e. based on a Netflix style of delivery, is a good business model? Can we think of any gaming subscription, all-you-can-eat subscription model? Yeah.
Well, hold on. One comes. Was it that Game Pass thing?
Xbox Games Pass. Yeah.
Hold on. So let me stop you there. So are you telling me, Clive, that through your investigative work, that you were able to confirm that Strauss is not favorable to the all-you-can-eat, as we have here in the States, Golden Corral buffet style type of things such as Game Pass, correct? That's what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, I think it's also important. So I'll quote what he says.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, good.
You're going to get a quote here,
all
and
right.
I think there's some other things that have happened that back this up. So he says, it's important. So I'll come back to this as well. He makes the interviewer says, okay, we've basically got 5 minutes left. Can we just talk about subscription and cloud gaming? There you are, go.
Yes.
And Strauss, Zelnick, he stops and he pauses and he says, okay, let's be very clear here. These are two different things.
Yep.
Game streaming is a technology. Subscription is a business model.
Yes.
The two do not have to go together. Yeah, they are independent. And he was very keen to make that point. And that's important because of something that Tassi says in his article at the end. But I'll come to that. But on subscription, he's on all-you-can-eat subscription. He says, I found for frontline subscription, so that's what he's talking about when he says frontline subscription, all you can eat, may be good for the consumer and that they may be getting a break in price. especially as an avid consumer, and that's important, avid consumer, so not his consumers,
yes,
who just buy maybe three typical
exactly.
1, 2, or 3 titles a year.
Yes.
Consumers may be getting a break in the price if they're an avid consumer, but it is no good for the distributor.
Woo!
So what he talks about is
say that again, because we got people that are going to gloss over that. So say that again. What was that last part, Clive? Say that again so everybody's clear what his stance is on the subscription service when we go further into the show. But go ahead, say that again.
Yeah. So he actually says it's challenging. All you can eat business model, the subscription model is challenging. But I'll say again here, he's so in my view, what will drive subscription would be an intersection of what's really good for the consumer and what's really good for the producer, distributor, or publisher. Yep. And we haven't found that yet for frontline subscription. Because frontline subscription may be good for the consumer and they may be getting a break in price, especially if they're an avid consumer, but it's no good for the distributor.
Wow.
Now, where he does think there's a sweet spot is in the back catalog.
In back catalog and like backwards compatibility. Yep. Gotcha.
Now,
absolutely.
He goes on further to say, and this is important, occasionally we've experimented with day and date frontline subscription. And I think what we found is, as you might imagine, if you put out a hit, it probably doesn't make sense.
Woo! Now, I'm sorry, Clive. Hold on. I'm sorry. Because every single article that we're going to, I want people to absorb that. Yeah. Every single article that we're going to go over in detail today says the exact opposite, particularly one from our good friend, Paul Tassi. But I just want this to be etched in people's minds to make sure they don't gloss over anything. Sorry, Clive. Go ahead and continue, my friend.
So Outer Worlds was, I seem to remember, delivered. So Outer Worlds is a private label owned by Take2 International. And that was put out on Xbox Game Pass as a day-on-date release. So it released to buy on the same day it was released. If you have an Xbox Games Pass subscription, you could play it straight away on the same day. The people who didn't have that or on PlayStation, whatever, could buy it. Yeah. So let's just go back over the thing. We've experimented with day and date frontline subscription. And I think that we found is if you might, as you might imagine, if you put out a hit, it probably doesn't make sense. Outer Worlds is a critically well-received and commercial hit. So they've experimented with all-you-can-eat subscription services with big AAA titles. And he's saying, so he's doubling down on his idea that he doesn't believe in an all-you-can-eat subscription model for interactive gaming. And it's sort of been proved out by their experience with the commercial success outside of Xbox Game Pass of Outer Worlds. So that's the key thing. Is he regretting the fact that if they hadn't put it on Xbox Games Pass because of its critical commercial success, it would have sold in millions more in terms of they would have had much more income than they got paid by Xbox on having it on a day-on-date release on Xbox Games Pass. So he is, on two different levels here, he has disparaged and dismissed the all-you-can-eat subscription model for gaming. And yet, and this is, I'm quoting from the same interview that Paul Tassi.
Yes.
Now, if we look at Paul Tassi's article, at the end of his article, he says, meanwhile, rival services like Microsoft Game Pass are right there, where for $10 you get a month. This is the same article that he said that the CEO Take2 International has basically looked at Stadia, screwed it up on a piece of paper, thrown it in the bin, said that's a load of rubbish. And then he's continued to Tassi, has continued in the same article to sort of summarize it towards the end, saying, and I'll tell you, when Game Pass inevitably combines with Xcloud, a more direct rival to Stadia in the streaming space, it won't even be a contest at all at that point. The subscription model he's talking about there is the exact same subscription model in the exact same interview that Strauss-Zelnick said is not a good business model.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. You can't take a small quote from him saying, yeah, Stadia launch was a bit slow, and then build an article around it, and then have an opinion which is the complete opposite of the person whose quote you used to kick off the article in the first place to support your case. It doesn't work like that.
I'm enamored, and I hope our friend Paul Tassi, I'm even inviting him to watch this show. I mean, let me hop around here. And so to make sure that I understand this, let me do this. Oh my, Paul Tassi's article on 2K CEO regarding. I'm doing this real time, guys. I got to do this. CEO being exposed doesn't look good. See now, okay, and then I'm going to put a link to our actual podcast here. Whoa!
While you do, can I just say, look? Go ahead. Okay, so I'm not denying here, and in the interview that Strauss, did not say what is quoted of him. Okay, the launch of Stadia, he says. Now, the problem is there's loads of stuff before this and loads of stuff after this, which is important. It gives it context. But he does say the launch of Stadia has been slow. I think there was some over-promising on what the technology could deliver, and therefore some consumer disappointment as a result. That's the line he uses. However, in terms of cloud gaming, he says, and this is not what's quoted, which is kind of weird. And what's happened, and what's happened here, and I'll come to the other piece that he mentions, which is mentioned in the article. So he does say.
No, hold on. Before you go, this is very important, people. So listen to this very closely. Again, what Clive is about to reveal to you guys is very important, and it's something that shouldn't have been cut out of the quotes that you see in these articles, particularly with Paul Tassi, because what Paul Tassi tried to do is he tried to make an argument for something that he personally favors, Game Pass, where Strauss-Zelnick himself just exhibited by his own words in that same Q&A is disparaging. Okay, so this is so not only did Strauss disparage Game Pass, but Paul Tassi tried to leave that out of his article and make it seem like that Strauss was making an argument for Game Pass, which is abhorrent within itself. But you're about to hear something from Clive that shoots down every single article that has been written, and why if in order for you to get a journalist pass, you had to go take something equivalent to the bar, where I wish we lived in that world. The bar would strip all these journalists of their ability to write articles. With that being said, but we do have the First Amendment. With that being said, I'm going to let Clive continue, but I wanted to precursor with, remember what he's about to say, why it admonishes all those articles. Go ahead, Clive. I'm sorry.
Okay, now what I'm about to quote here, I'm not leaving anything out in this quote, and it is the order in which it was said. So this is just more damning, I think. So he says, this is Zelnick says, so streaming technology is upon us. The launch of Stadia has been slow. I think there was some over-promising on what technology could deliver and some consumer disappointment as a result. I think anytime you broaden distribution, you essentially broaden your audience, which is why we supported the release of Stadia with 3 titles initially, and will continue to support high-quality streaming services as long as the business model makes sense. Now, he says there, we will continue to support high-quality streaming services as long as the business model makes sense. Now, as I have just explained, he has just dismissed one particular business model. Okay?
Yep.
Xbox, Games Pass, all you can eat. That is not a business model. Should they decide to integrate with Projekt Xcloud, that potentially is a business model which he doesn't think works. Now, what is the other cloud game streaming service currently sort of launched? The big one. The other big one, it's Geforce Now.
Yes.
What titles have been removed from Geforce Now? Okay, they are Take2 titles, and they're not the only publishers and developers who've done this. They are Take2. Why have they done that? Because the business model does not make sense. Are they going to continue to support Stadia? Yes, because we know that Mafia, because it's got its ERSB rating and stuff, and we know that Mafia, which falls under the Take2 family, is also coming to Stadia. So Stadia, as a cloud streaming service, is one of those services, as long as it maintains its high, its quality, which it will, they clearly will support. And the reason they support it is because, as he said, every time you broaden your distribution, you essentially broaden your audience. And they are all about finding new audiences. So basically, you take that away. Your statement from there is Stadia had a slow launch, but we'll continue to support Stadia. That's effectively what he's saying. If I was writing the headline, which I did, as you know, I wrote an alternative.
Yes.
It would be head of CEO of This is my the sort of the parallel universe to Paul Tassi. In Paul Tassi like Stadia universe, using the exact same article, he could have written the headline: CEO of Take2 Interactive dismisses Xbox Game Pass subscription as a business model and supports Stadia and cloud gaming.
Yes,
because that is what he said. He supports Stadia. They supported it initially. Initially means at the beginning, and therefore continually. And they'll continue to support cloud gaming services, Stadia, because they're not supporting Geforce Now. So he's saying he supports Stadia. Now, what's happened though in the various articles and special articles like Paul Tassi is that they've conflated 2 different things. Yeah. Okay. So yes, Zelnick said the Stadia launch had been slow. He thinks there was some over-promising on the technology in terms of what he's talking about in terms of the consumer's expectations at the get-go, and that's a separate debate, and therefore consumer disappointment. Okay, he does say that, but as I said, he says they supported Stadia at the beginning, will continue to support cloud streaming where game streaming where it makes business sense, and we've established that certain ones it doesn't make business sense. But when you've ticked those off, Stadia is still there, and we know that they're continuing to support Stadia. However, he does go on to say, and this is the point here, he's talking about cloud gaming in general, not about Stadia. And this is where the problem is. He says, I had said, this is a quote again here, I'm quoting here. I'd said prior to the release of Stadia, okay, and that's important. I said prior to the release of Stadia, and I continue to stand by this view. It is not a game changer. He's not talking about Stadia. He's talking about game streaming. It is not a game changer. People who want our games, so the Take2 games, now get our games now. The fact that you can stream them and not have to have a console interface is really not that big a deal. So what he's talking about, as I said earlier, is his business model. Yeah, where people that are prepared to spend 60 quid on 3 or 4 AAA games, you know, game streaming is not going to radically change their mindset. And that's the core audience of Take-Two international titles. However, he does recognize that with cloud gaming as a distribution sort of provision of service, you are broadening your audience. And so, of course, you will support it. What he's saying, and he goes on to say, is, I'm excited about the technology and what it can do. I'm excited about the technology and what it can do. But I don't believe it's going to multiply our market by 10 or 20 times. That's what he's talking about. He's saying it's not a game changer because in his mind, he doesn't think, as some people may have thought, that suddenly sales of AAA, you're going to open up a market which is going to increase your sales of your AAA games by 10 to 20 times.
Yep.
And as a business person, he was saying before Stadia was launched about cloud streaming, it's going to broaden your audience, but not 10 or 20 times. So it's not really a game changer.
Yep.
Which is from his business point of view and the way that they run their business is fair enough. It's not, on that point, it's not a game changer. It's not, I can understand why he can think, well, actually, I don't think our market cap, our market cap is going to increase by 10 or 20 fold just because of cloud gaming. And that is what he's saying. And he said, I said it prior to Stadia launching about cloud gaming, and I stand by what I said.
Repeat what you just said. He said specifically what? That he said that prior
to the release of Stadia, and I continue to stand by this view, it is not a game changer. And he's talking about cloud gaming. He's not talking about Stadia. He's talking about cloud gaming. It's not a game changer. And who's he talking to? Talking to business people. So he's saying it's not a game changer in terms of business, the business that they have, in terms of the Take-Two international business. It's another revenue stream, and they will pursue that revenue stream. Of course they will. And as he says, it broadens their audience, and they will go for that audience. But as he later says, it's not going to multiply their market 10 or 20 times. So it's not an absolute revolution that's suddenly going to, increase profit margins by 10 or 20 times for all games publishers. In his mind, it's just another revenue stream. They supported Stadia at the beginning, and they'll continue to support it. But cloud gaming in general is not a game changer. So those are two different things. His view on cloud gaming, it generally not being a game changer, is one thing. His comment, his throwaway comment about, Stadia launch has been a bit slow, is another comment. But if you read the articles that have been based on this, they have conflated these two things and put them together. They have basically said, the CEO of Take-Two International says Google Stadia launch was slow, effectively a failure, and therefore it's not a game changer.
Or better yet, Clive, that he's disappointed.
He's disappointed. And it's not the game changer he thought it would be. Effectively. That's what they're saying. He never thought it was going to be a game changer from the get-go, before it even launched. And what he means by game changer, is that he never thought that suddenly sales of GTA or Borderlands 3 would increase tenfold. Because of cloud gaming. And on that basis, it's not a game changer. Of course it's not.
At this
it's just another revenue stream.
At this point would rival consoles, established consoles that have been out for some. He never thought, let me back up a little bit. Because I want to start off where I came from with this, because I know a lot of people felt the same way that I did that are watching this, that are fans of Stadia. And shout out to Club Stadia, Brian. He warned us during the TSI podcast. I don't know if you saw it, Clive, but he warned us. He said, take these articles with a grain of salt, because I feel funny about them. My spidey senses are tingling. He said, even though I'm the captain, I'm Captain America, my spidey senses are tingling. I don't trust the way these articles are written. And we agreed with them, but we took debate. I went and I attacked Strauss. A lot of people attacked Strauss. A lot of people still feeling different with about what Strauss had to say, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. So I had to apologize based upon your findings, because let me clarify your findings again, and you let me know where I'm wrong anywhere. Just to break it down for the listening public, and hopefully Paul Tassi is listening, because our friend Paul is prone to not doing due diligence and just jumping at any shiny thing that he feels will fit his narrative. So let me just go over everything. First and foremost, Strauss Zelnick never thought, and let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong, he never thought that cloud gaming before or after Stadia launch was going to be a game changer. Yes or no?
Yeah, that's right. His view was cloud gaming as a business, a new revenue stream, was not that game changing. Okay.
So therefore, being that he didn't think it was game changing, it wasn't game changing after launch, he did not express that he was disappointed with what was going on with Stadia in that Q&A. Is that correct?
That is correct. He never meant. He said he just made a statement of arguably a fact, I guess. In it, well, no, it's not a fact. It's a viewpoint, a business viewpoint. It's not a fact. We can, because and we, you know, as I said before this chat, I think Stadia had a roadmap, and they're probably hitting the points on that roadmap. So in their mind, it's not you know, a failure. But in terms of, you know, the hype that was sort of driven, and we know that's a dangerous thing, and it wasn't managed by Google and Stadia, and therefore when Stadia was launched, and it didn't launch with all these amazing features that they said they would roll out. Yeah, people were like, "Oh, it hasn't got this, it hasn't got that," and the narrative started. You know, we've seen that negative narrative start from there. So he makes a sort of a business statement, a business view statement from his point of view, that the launch of Stadia has been slow, and he says, I think there was some over promising on what the technology can deliver, and as a result, some consumer disappointment. Yeah, and some consumer disappointment as a result. He says that. And that's fine. But that is separate from his view about cloud gaming as a business, radically changing the business model for publishers.
Okay, so I'm going to treat this like I got you on the stand, Clive. Paul, I lied to you, Clive. Paul Tassi hired me as his lawyer, so now I got you on the stand. I'm gonna grill you some more. Now you've already answered. You're answering questions under oath, right? You answered the first two questions, and we found out that you didn't lie. The polygraph said that you were telling the truth, but we're gonna get you somewhere. Next question. So he says that, did he not say that he was going to support cloud gaming wherever it made sense to him? Correct. He said that, correct?
Yeah, he says, I think anytime you broaden distribution, you essentially broaden your audience, which is why we supported the release of Stadia with 3 titles initially. And we'll continue to support high quality streaming services as long as the business model makes sense.
So would it be fair to say, Clive, that based upon all that we've already talked about, that if he, on the release of 3 titles initially on Stadia, continues to put more titles on there like PGA and Mafia?
Exactly. Sorry, I completely forgot about PGA.
Yeah, the PGA is
completely undermined that they are continuing to support.
Just continue to support. Yes. And he's yanked titles from GFN. Would that then lead to the public to believe that he is supporting Stadia even after the quote unquote slow launch, and he does not support GFN, meaning he is not disappointed in Stadia because he didn't put all of his eggs in Stadia's basket to begin with? Would that be an actual assessment to you, Clive?
Yeah, I think, he's saying here, they'll continue to support high quality streaming service as long as the business model makes sense. Okay. Is there any evidence that they are continuing to support Stadia? Yes. You've just said that we know we've got the Golf coming out. We know we've got Mafia coming out. So they are continuing to support it with promised titles. Are they continuing to support the other cloud gaming services that exists? GeForce Now? No, because they've yanked those titles right off the service. So that is not the high quality streaming service that they're looking for here. These are not the joys you're looking for. This is not the cloud streaming service you're looking for. Stadia is, because they're supporting it. They supported it at the beginning. They continue to support it now and onwards, and we can see that. And the more titles that Take-Two launch, and you've got the DLC that keeps coming for the Borderlands stuff as well. So the more titles we see from Take-Two, the more it drills down this point that they consider Stadia to be one of those high quality streaming services.
Yes.
That has the business model that makes sense to them.
Yes. So, okay. Paul Tassi just called me on the phone, right?
Yeah.
He said he's threatening to take his retainer back and fire me. So this is the last question that I'm going to ask you on the stand, Clive, and you better be ready for this one. All right. All right. So is it true or is it not true that Strauss Zelnick didn't disparage Stadia as far as because he considers it a high streaming platform, correct? Because they're continuing to support it. They're continuing to support it after the 3 games. But they yanked GFN off, yanked their games off of GFN. So apparently they're not supporting it. He doesn't consider it a high quality streaming platform. However,
well, I think he doesn't think the business model.
The business model. Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's the
so he's shown his support for Stadia despite showing no support for GFN. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so here goes the final question. I'll set you up. But is it true or is it not true that even though he showed support for Stadia, he's not showing support for Game Pass, which is what Paul Tassi tried to say that the twisting of Strauss's words showed support of. So in other words, did he not show support for Stadia actually disparage Game Pass in that Q&A? Yes or no, Mr. Linden?
Yes. So Strauss specifically says an all-you-can-eat subscription model does not work for gaming, in his view, is not a good business model. Okay. And the thing is, Tassi chose to ignore that very clear statement about an all-you-can-eat subscription model for interactive gaming is not a good business model. He chose to ignore it because it didn't fit his narrative. And Paul Tassi uses the Xbox Game Pass, and if it comes to Projekt Xcloud, as why that is the best model and will somehow defeat Stadia, and it will be a no contest.
Wow.
So he, as a journalist, he's just used one statement, that one line. The launch of Stadia has been slow. No, 2 lines in fairness. The launch of Stadia has been slow, and I think there was some, disappointment. And cloud gaming, although he's conflated this a bit, the cloud gaming is not a game changer. Okay? And yet, apparently it's not a game changer, and yet it will be when Microsoft Xbox XPass goes on Projekt Xcloud. It will be a game changer, according to Tassi, but not according to Strauss, who said the complete opposite.
I'm sorry, I was answering a call from Paul. I've been fired. He said I didn't do a great job representing him. Said I did a better job representing you. So
you did your best, in pro bono. He's on a paper thin case. His case is falling apart.
They handed him
rights.
They handed him empty boxes at Forbes, so he's fired. I'm fired. No, he's not fired. But I will say
that actually, that Strauss says, I'm excited about the technology and what it can do. Now, he does go on to say, but I don't believe it's going to multiply our market 10 or 20 times. Mm-hmm. If it does, that'll be great. So he's excited about the technology and what it can do. And when he's talking about what it can do, he's talking about, I think, more about, again, he's talking to a business audience. So he's excited about the potential of cloud gaming, partly from a technological point of view, but equally more, I would say, as a distribution outlet. He's just very quick to say, let's not all think that suddenly the business is going to multiply 10 or 20 times. He says that, multiply our market by 10 or 20 times. That is just a guy going, whoa, let's, I know it's exciting and all that, but let's, we've got a very core market, people who spank 60 quid on a top quality title that they will play non-stop for 3 to 4 to 5 months. Yeah. And they're the sort of people that buy consoles. Let's not neglect them on some sort of panacea that somehow, cloud gaming's coming down from the heavens and changing everything. And everybody's going to pick up their consoles and throw them out the windows. Yeah. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. We know that there's a whole generation of console gaming coming. Now, there's some debate about whether in 5 years, effectively 6 years time, that's, are there going to be new consoles, or are they going to be like effectively points to which you're going to get the game served to you via the cloud? We know that some of those elements are going to be built into the new consoles, but there is some debate within the industry now that this could be the last console generation in the form that we know it.
Exactly.
But not for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly.
And I think that's what he's talking about. His core business is there, all their title. He does go on to talk about they're moving to a more open system. And he talks about how all their titles eventually go to PC. And he sees that they're becoming much more of an open system, i.e., you'll be able to access or play their products on lots of different platforms. And that's more and more the case, how he sees it. He talks about that separately in the article.
So just to wrap this up with a nice little bow, before we move on to the last part of Clive's expose, and I like to call it an expose because that's exactly, it exposes the hell out of these people. Zelnick, if you go in chronological order, pretty much of what he said, he was given 5 minutes out of 54 minutes.
Yeah,
where they just did, at the end of the thing. And if you want to see all this, let me say this. I heavily lauded everybody before this show to go see Clive's video. I've seen in the comment section where people were like, well, they're not getting into certain detail. I warned you guys. I tried to spread the word, because I said we only got so much time, and Clive spent a meticulous amount of time detailing this. He even plays the conference for you and gives you a link to it in his video. So if you didn't do it, immediately after this, all the links are below in the comment section. I even put some in the chat. I'll put them in again in the chat. You have to watch that video. You guys got to follow instructions. We can't get mad at the media for not doing their due diligence if we don't do the same. So I urge again everybody. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm just saying there's a method of why we had to do it this way, because we only have so much time at our disposal. With that being said, check out Clive's video below. However, just to wrap this all up with a bow, in a 54-minute conference, towards the end, they say, hey, you want to talk about cloud gaming real quick? Strauss says, sure, why not? Let's talk about Stadia. Stadia had a slow launch, and I don't think nobody reasonably can disagree with that. He said, and part of that may be due, and I'm ad-libbing here, but pretty much part of that may be due to the fact that I believe there may have been some over-promising, and we'll talk about that. I think he meant perception-wise on what the tech could do, because we can go down the gambit of features. There's all of the features are there. Crata's the feature that's coming with Crata is about to drop. So it's just a perception thing, but perception is 9 tenths of the law. If that's what people perceive, that's what's going to become reality. So he says perception wise, pretty much that people thought that the tech was overpromised. We never look. I didn't put all my eggs in the basket of cloud gaming, and I said this before Stadia's launch. We're not putting our eggs in the basket of cloud gaming. Why? Because our business model right now, the day that you're asking me this, my friend, is our consumers are willing to spend a couple $100, or they're willing to upgrade a PC to play our games. We don't see cloud gaming right now changing that dynamic that much. Even right now, it's an extra revenue stream. It's not going to flip everything on its head right now. And if you look at the reality of it, what Google did, we talked about this prior, Clive, that they released this to founders. Would you like to describe that again? If Google was trying to set the world on fire in day one, they wouldn't have released it to founders. Explain that again, my friend.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this whole, the sort of the perception, and I've talked about as well on my channel, and other people have talked about, Chase talked about it, and the managing the marketing narrative, and that's the issue. That if anything, that Google misstepped, where they took a misstep, is on handling the message properly. But if you look at what they've said, and I've said this before on my Stadia Monday Night Chat, and I've said it on other people's channels, Google did make, now I'm not going to say clear because they didn't make it clear, but they did say, so back in March 2019, they said, here is Stadia. This is what it's going to do. You're going to be able to do this and do that. And it's all, it's going to do all these amazing things. You can stream to YouTube, the state save and all these different things, right? And it's going to be marvelous. And then but we'll have more news about how we'll, almost quoting Phil Harrison here, is that we'll have more news about how this will roll out. How this will roll out in the summer. Yes. Come the summer of 19, they said, okay, so here are some games that are going to come to the title, to the platform. Great, lovely, super, marvelous. And we'll be starting off with the Stadia Founders kit to give people an early chance to get in and be a founder. Yeah, it's called Stadia Founders. Yeah, the founding fathers of America didn't turn up to America and have it made. It wasn't already made. Yeah, that's why it's called. So people say, oh, it's a sort of a beta. Well, it's in normal terms, I would sort of say yes, but in Google terms, no. What Google have said, and the very fact they call it Founders Edition, was to say, look, we are building something here, and we will continue to build this thing here. But what we want to give you the chance to is get in on the bottom floor. Yes. Okay, on the start of us building this. And you can come in as a Stadia founder. Yes. That keyword, founder. And when they were oversubscribed on the Stadia founders, and so they thought, okay, we've run out of the Midnight Blue things. Let's do, because obviously there's a lot of people who come when they announced it in June 2019, were like, right, PayPal, I'm getting that, whatever, credit card, I'm ordering that. There are a lot of early adopters, like me and other people are like, yeah, I'm in. I'll do that.
Absolutely.
And so as I say, that clearly was oversubscribed. And they said, because it's so popular, we've decided to extend it to the premiere. Yeah, the premiere, right? So November 2019 comes along. It's launched. Oh, I had to wait 2 days for mine. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, well, fucking mistake, mate. You waited a month. All right, 2 days. Get out of here, you big baby. Anyway, right. So mine didn't come on the 19th of November. Google, you lied. It came on the 21st of November. Okay, wow, 3 days. Now, did it have everything they promised that Google Stadia will have? No. Did they promise that? No. Did it have everything they promised the Founders Edition would have? Yes. It had Destiny 2. It had, all these things that they promised. They laid out in a PowerPoint. These are all the things that you would get with your Founders Edition. So it was about, them rolling it out. And since then, we've seen them roll out, add more features and more games and build the library. So we were founders. Now, I'm completely with the argument that you go, well, that's not the impression they gave, or they weren't clear enough about that fact that they'd be rolling out. And that's a perfectly acceptable position to take. And I can understand how consumers assuming or getting misled about, or no, not getting misled, misunderstanding that sort of marketing,
or rather, Clive, there being a big gap in the communication.
Yeah, because where there's a gap, where nature abhors a vacuum, You know, 101 physics, nature abhors a vacuum. Where there's a gap, people fill it, and they'll fill it with junk.
Exactly. Yes.
My prime example of this, of course, is, and this is one of the issues that they had, to little Johnnies or whatever at the back of the class that aren't paying attention, or people who don't understand cloud gaming. And so what people have used is shorthand, and this has been the problem. And this also touches on something actually in this article, actually, that Strauss Zelnick makes very clear. And he's very clear at the beginning of the talk about cloud gaming to make a distinction, as I said earlier, between cloud streaming and subscription, and making them separate things. Exactly. However, when the concept of streaming your games without the need for a console was explained to you know, the people in the street who didn't understand it, people said, "Well, what's this cloud, you know, streaming? What's this game streaming? What is it? What is it?" And people have said, "Okay, how can I find an example that will make sense to you?" Oh, I know. You know how Netflix, because everybody has Netflix. You know how Netflix, yeah, you want to watch a film, yeah, and they stream that film to your telly, yeah. Then it's a bit like that. Oh, oh, so cloud streaming is like Netflix. Yeah, so it's like Netflix. Oh, hey, Bob, what? Have you heard about this cloud streaming thing? Yeah, it's like Netflix. What? Subscription, you get all you can eat. Yeah. Hey, Terry. Yeah, what? Have you heard about the cloud streaming? It's like Netflix. It's all you can eat. Oh, right. Okay. November the 19th, come to get it. Oh, what a stupid model. It's not, it's not, you know, it's not all you can eat. Now, Paul Tassi says specifically in his article, and this is quite interesting, and he misses the point completely, that the problem with Stadia, the Stadia model, is it's weird not to have streaming and subscription linked. That's why he doesn't think Stadia is. This is not Strauss Zelnick. This is Paul Tassi. He thinks it's weird that streaming and subscription and all you can eat subscription is not linked. It feels weird to the consumer. Strauss specifically says, Strauss Zelnick specifically says, streaming and subscription are two separate things and are not dependent on each other. In the same article that Tassi is using to disparage Stadia and come up with the problem that's wrong with Stadia is because it's weird not to have streaming and subscription linked.
Yes.
Strauss Zelnick says streaming and subscription doesn't have to be linked. And in fact, he goes on to say that subscription all you can eat model is not a good business model. So that's the problem that we've got here with this article. The one statement he says about the Stadia being slow launch or consumers being disappointed, Tassi has just used that, ignored everything else, even points which go against the points that Tassi wants to make. He's just ignored to basically continue his narrative that somehow Stadia is just rubbish and part of the reason is the business model. And Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of the biggest games publisher in the world, never talked about Stadia's business model being wrong or not right. He never, ever mentioned the business model. The business model he did mention as not being right was all you can eat subscription, which is not Stadia. Which is more of a Game Pass thing. So Tassi, as we've seen with many articles and many media, has taken. He's got the tweezers. He's seen something negative about Stadia. He's picked it out. He's thrown it onto his blank piece of paper, and then he's built an article around it without referring back to, just in case that the person that he's sourcing, the person he's quoting, maybe said anything else that might be contrary to the narrative he's written. And he never did that. And there is so much in this same piece, the same interview, that is completely contrary, as I've hopefully explained tonight. I may have rambled on about it, but explained tonight. There are so many things that Strauss Zelnick said, which is the complete opposite or completely undermines other bit of Paul Tassi's statement. And as I said earlier, what's happened, though, is that the Forbes article, a major magazine article, we've seen facsimile, typical lazy repetitions of people jumping on that negative headline, the Google Stadia headline, and repeating it. And then the conflation of two separate things that I talked about cloud gaming not being a game changer from a business point of view, and this Google Stadia launch being slow. The conflation of that has now become one solid object that is repeated. And I think I saw an article that Rock tweeted on the Deep Horizons, which just takes Paul Tassie's position and drives it even further away in terms of its incorrectness from the original interview with Strauss Zelnick. And this replication, this erroneous replication of erroneous and ill-written and ill-informed article is just increasing as it gets replicated and repeated. And we've seen it with Wrong Yi and all those things. It's like you do not understand the business. You do not understand cloud gaming. And in fact, well, I won't now. Let's disparage them. The point is that the people that are talking about this clearly haven't done the research, clearly are ill-informed, and clearly driving a very specific narrative. And Paul Tassi is a prime example of that if you read his other articles about Stadia. But the very fact that the points he makes to disparage Stadia in his article are not backed up by what Strauss Zelnick says, and in fact is the complete opposite of what Strauss Zelnick says, and so has been ignored. So the validity of Paul Tassie's piece is ripped to shreds.
Yeah. I want to say this, Clive. It kind of reminds me of the classic game. Well, maybe not so classic for me and you old geezers, old geezers like me, you and I. But to a lot of gamers that are listening, a classic game, the classic game Katamari, right? The game, and I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but it's an indie, it's a famous Nintendo game. It was on PlayStation as well, where there's a ball that rolls down a hill, and your job is to collect, and it rolls into a city. And its job is to collect as many people, trees, cars, as much as they can. And then
stick to the ball. They stick to the ball.
And once you get to a certain destination, you collect. You as many people as you can collect, regardless if they want to be part of the ball, but they may not understand what's going on. But your job is just to collect, keep rolling and collect them until you can get as many as possible. And it's something that I like to call hashtag Katamari journalism, right? Now follow me. And I say this because they throw this ball down the hill. It's very emotional and bombastic in its clickbaitiness of it, and you get sucked into it. But so many people start doing it, and they get caught up in this ball. It actually started with GameSpot, and then Paul Tassi picked it up.
Yeah, I saw that. He quoted GameSpot. Yeah. Yep.
Paul Tassi picked it up, and he knew that he was going to get ire from us. So then he tried to play the victim card. But then you had your extreme text, your screen rants, and PC gamers and all, and we're going to highlight them soon. But they start falling into this until you, the listener, the unsuspecting gamer in many cases, get caught up in this stuff. And the only way to not get caught up in that Katamari ball, that Katamari journalism, is you can't be part of those towns. Meaning you can't go to these sources. You can't trust these sources. Clive just illustrated that to you perfectly, that they have the audacity now. They're so clickbaity and they're so thirsty for clicks that they have the audacity to take a Q&A that completely goes against the thesis of what they want to write, caveat it, and put it into something that they do, and make it seem like it's something completely different. They basically did the equivalency of a deep fake. They did a deep fake with Strauss Zelnick's words and catered it into what they wanted it to be because of Strauss Zelnick's position. And I say this real quick before I pass it off to you to finish it off. That's why we have this running. It's been 5 days 21 hours, 12 minutes, and 11 seconds since we've seen this abhorrent, egregious acts happen, from the GameSpots to Paul Tassi's, whoever that want to get caught up in that Catamari ball, and Strauss Zelnick not saying anything. And Strauss, I get it, you're running CBS and all this other stuff, but it's important. It's important that people know, because look at it like this, Strauss. They're not respecting your business gangster. They're not respecting you, and the fact that they feel like that they can take your words and twist it the way that they want to, despite everything that you've accomplished, everything that you've tried to do for whatever business entities you represent. To me, as a CEO or a venture capitalist, that's dangerous. So you have to speak up, because they're abusing the power business-wise that you have for their own agenda. So you got to say something, Strauss. But damn, Clive, I mean, I really don't have much to say on the matter, because you've illustrated perfectly. They have lost their integrity because they completely distorted what the true meaning of Strauss's Q&A was. So kudos to you, man, for doing an excellent job revealing that. Before we move on, any last thoughts before we go into just journalism as a whole? Any other thoughts on this particular item?
It leads on to what we're about to sort of talk about in journalism in general. This is not atypical. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This sort of misquoting or misunderstanding generally is the norm. Yeah. So what we're not going, oh my God, Paul Tassi's made a mistake. He never makes a mistake, or whatever, Tom Warren or whatever. You know, it's people who don't really get to understand the business models or the subject matter. They have they're a tech journalist, yeah. So they have a sort of a general. I think I know what that is. Oh yeah, I've got a place that. Yeah, I know what that is. You know, they don't go, okay, let's do a deep dive. Let's do a deep piece on this, because people haven't got time. They just want to hear, oh yeah, that supports my worldview. Which at the moment, you know, in the gaming world, the tech view, the world view, the popular one is that somehow Stadia is rubbish, and you know, and that's the frustrating for people who've got it, going, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
You talk about some Chinese rip-off Stadia, like Radia or something, you know, like this is definitely a Stadia console I've got is working, you know, and that's the frustrating thing. But as a narrative, it's a popular narrative. You know, you're going to get your clicks. It's hilarious. I'll make a joke about Stadia, you know, great, marvelous. But it's just become, and because it's popular, it means that the journalists writing this stuff become lazier and lazier and lazier, because their editors are going, you getting those clicks? Yeah, mate, I'm getting those people who read my articles. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Go back to your long lunch. Yeah, I've got this. Stadia's rubbish. I'm writing it now. Stadia. Okay, bye. Right, just knock that out 5 minutes, which is clearly what Tassi has done, because as I said, he's not that in 5 minutes, because I wrote an article, alternative article based on the same argument, and it took me 5 minutes, and yet oddly enough it says the complete it's written in his style, but oddly enough it says the complete opposite of what he said from the same source, and it took me 5 minutes to do it. Absolutely. So he just, you know, it's just we're seeing this me sort of go, oh, I found that, you know, the interview was just me going, there's something that doesn't sit right. I never take for granted single quotes out of, you know, I want to say, what is the setting of that quote? And it just led me. I thought, well, surely this interview, if it's with you know, equity investors or whatever, must be online somewhere. So I just found it and I watched the whole interview. And then I just thought, wait a minute, there's other things going on here. And hence we're here now talking about it.
Exactly. I gave an example, because this is, I know I used the word abhorrent over and over again. see it here. No, I just want everybody has to, and do us a huge favor, guys, because this is some great stuff from Clive. Tweet this out, let everybody know. I'm bound to get blocked by PC Gamer and Forbes and Paul Tassi, and hey, that means that we're being effective, right? When they want to silence you. That being said, when we first got this article, I kind of talked about this in a prior video, is that we wanted to me and Brian wanted to vet this. So I was spending some time vetting it. Brian couldn't finish vetting it, so he just went to me and he said, "Hey, MM, do me a favor. We're going to talk about this tonight. I haven't had a chance to fully go through it, but I want you to, get your investigative juices flowing and see what you can find out so far before we talk about this." That took me a few hours to do. From what I understood, I didn't do a fantastic great as job as you, but I got the gist of what was being reported by GameSpot. Now, if I can do that, someone that does this on the side, you know what I mean? This isn't my main gig, opposed to people getting paid for this. Before we move on, what does that say for the state of journalism to you?
Well, as I said, as I said earlier, it's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's lazy journalism. It's just, thinking, okay, there is this popular narrative. I'm going to follow it. I followed it in January. I'm not going to change my position. It's an opinion piece. It is an opinion piece. And the very fact that, as I say, his conclusion, Paul Tassi's conclusion in his opinion piece, that if Xbox Games Pass launches with Projekt Xcloud, then it's no contest for Stadia. It's completely undermined by the source that he's quoting.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that, to me, is an example of the fact that he didn't bother, or he did bother, but just chose to ignore it. He didn't bother to listen to the whole thing, as a good journalist should. Just listen to the whole thing, understand the context, think about the audience. He thought, no, I'm going for a tabloid headline. Effectively, that's what it is. It's tabloid journalism. What gets the eyeballs? What can we sensationalize? Because nobody wants the detail, like you could say, oh yeah, Clive, but you had to explain that thing. That you had to explain about the context, and then you had to explain that he said prior to and then afterwards, and then the fact that certain subscription business models he didn't like, and then you had to explain to us, oh yeah, Xbox is like that. That takes too long. Can you just give us the headlines?
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
If you give the headlines, the simplicity, the black and white view, without the nuance, without the grey.
Yep.
I'm not here to say, and Strauss Zelnick wasn't saying, oh, Stadia's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. No.
It's revolutionary. He's not saying that, and he's clearly, he's just sort of saying, okay, everybody, it's not, cloud gaming in general is not going to be this massive game changer. Stadia hasn't changed my view on that. Fine. That his opinion prior and opinion afterwards. And that's his opinion based on the way he runs his business. Fine. So Zelnick wasn't saying that, but there's nuance, there's grayness, there's detail. And the more you look into it, the more you realize that actually, in fact, it's less detail. There is clarity in there, but that clarity and certain statements by Zelnick have been ignored.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it does not fit the lazy narrative that Paul Tassi and others have gone on. And the reason it's partly lazy as well is because they're just replicating each other's articles.
Yep, exactly.
Like everybody does it. We do it a little bit in YouTube. We go, oh, that's a good video. I'm going to do one like that. We do that, but it's lazy.
It's lazy.
It's lazy. And if you are a major, like a young Yi, right? Like it annoys me that he's got, he's got less than, because hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and therefore I'm thinking it annoys me that that many of us in the Stadia community, I look at us and we've got maybe a few hundred here, a few thousand here, we're lucky, whatever, and then I see Inside Gaming, millions, million of subscribers, however many they've got, and they're having a laugh at Stadia. I see the Layman Gaming, whatever, two Aussie boys. They don't even get Stadia in Australia. They don't even know what they're talking about. That's what makes me annoying. But they've read somewhere, and they keep going and make a joke about Stadia. So it's this running joke. Stadia's this joke, right? Young Yi's not even tried Stadia.
Yeah.
What's he talking about? He's not qualified to talk about it.
Exactly.
But the frustrating thing for us is that you and I mean, however much we'd love it if this was syndicated and we had millions of views, you know, that would be marvelous. But it ain't going to happen. We are small, tiny fish, well, microscopic animals on the back of a whale, you know, just chewing at little bits, trying to correct things, you know. And that's what's frustrating, is that these out, so that big. So with those, as I say, I can ignore those because they're just generally YouTube clickbaity people. But big articles like Forbes magazine, a major magazine, they're paying top dollar for their journalists. Yeah. I have just proved in okay, it took me 54 minutes to sit through the thingy, but that's about the longest bit of time it took. You know, it didn't take me. There wasn't another. I had to go and search other sources. There was one single source. You know, that's the thing. It's not as though I had to go to the kind of the Library of Congress and dig out great dusty books and find all my case. You know, like some kind of
go through the
lawyer.
microfiche.
Yeah, exactly. As they go up to the librarian, have you got this, please? You know, I don't think that volume exists. No, it was one single source that I just put in Google. I put Bernstein Group in. Strauss, whatever, and bing, it came up. I found it. Click here. I sat through it. Okay, that's interesting. They'd done a handy transcript of it. Oh, that's useful. I'll download that as well. That was it. Yeah. That was it.
That's it.
And Forbes, I say, I can forgive other people. I can forgive lazy YouTubers. We're all lazy YouTubers. You know what I mean? You know, we're all going to just say stuff and get clicks, right?
Yep.
But Forbes magazine, they pay I hope they're paying top dollar for their journalists, because it's Forbes magazine. It's not some, you know, rubbishy little, it's a major magazine publication. Yeah, I have just proved in that short space of time that this piece of journalism is shallow, poorly written, poorly informed. And I would question, if I was their senior editor and knew this, that my tech writer was so ill-informed or was writing opinion pieces and yet not backing that up. It's all right to write an opinion piece, but back it up with proof. But don't use proof that has other bits in it that undermines what you say. That's like just as foolish. Yeah. You can't just take one piece out and not expect some people to go, find that piece that you've sourced and go, yeah, but here he's sort of disparaging all you can eat subscription service, and here you say it's and then he makes very clear that cloud streaming and subscription are two separate things and need to be dealt with separately and shouldn't necessarily aren't always combined. And yet, Paul, you've said here that it seems weird that an all you can eat subscription and streaming is not combined, and that's what's wrong with Stadia. Where's that bit from? Or is that just your view? But why didn't you quote Strauss Zelnick? Because he said the complete opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yet you've quoted him at the top.
You're Forbes. You're
Forbes.
I mean,
there's no excuse for it. It's lazy.
Yeah, this is a business investor's call. If anybody that would have had the ability to find that, let's just say if it was harder to find, I would believe it would be Forbes over GameSpot. So even if GameSpot reported what they reported and it was half bumbled or whatever, I would expect Forbes to clean it up, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
So let me do this, because that was all spot on. Let me do this though. Let me get the chat's perception of everything that we had to discuss so far, and let's take it from there, because I saw some good stuff in the chat here. Here goes our homie XV, big pillar in the Stadia community. He says, "Notice there are no articles mentioning Take-Two in Game Pass." Right. That's a great point. Ashes to Ashes says, for real, the power of social media right now is pretty scary as it pertains to people thinking what is true and not. Very scary. Let's see here. What else we got here? We got our good friend Dazadini. He says, awesome show, guys. MM2K and Clive should do this more often. Quality stream. Hey, Daz, I'm trying to get him and Adam to join my Destiny group, the Old Dirty Blasters, but they refuse. They refuse. You know, everybody gets a walker with an ace bandage wrapped around it if they join, but they refuse. No, Clive did a one. I can't take all I'm doing is letting Clive shine on my channel. I can't get any credit.
I'm grateful for the platform, man. It's probably said. The point is, when you said, "Oh, I want you on," I thought, okay. I went back and I did a further kind of, I reread everything. I went back to and the more I read, and I said it to you, the more I was thinking, "Oh my God, this is even worse than."
It's even worse.
Part of the first thing was sort of emotionally driven, not factual, but then the more I looked into it and just thought, okay, put my analytical brain on. Let's look at this. Let's analyze it. From sort of an advocate point of view, the worse it got. And then the more stuff I read, I just thought, no, that's laughable because it's complete opposite of what the guy said later. But you've chosen specifically to ignore it because it doesn't fit your article. Doesn't fit what you said. Yeah, and it is true. So I forget whoever it said earlier about. No, I said 6-4 was saying about. I think you quoted him earlier. Was it saying about how? Yeah, it's interesting. There's no articles about. CEO.
Yep.
CEOs.
That was XV. He said,
XV.
There's no articles mentioning
Take-Two and Game Pass. Okay, now the reason is because Strauss Zelnick does not say Xbox Game Pass. It doesn't mention Project Xcloud. Okay, but any person with a ounce of sense or intelligence can see what is implied. He specifically talks about an all-you-can-eat subscription model. There is only one real all-you-can-eat subscription model in gaming right now, and that is Xbox Game Pass. But the point is that is implied. It is not explicit, and also it doesn't fit the narratives. But yes. As I said before, in my alternative article based on the same thing, you can easily say, CEO of Take-Two Interactive dismisses Xbox Game Pass subscription as a business model and supports Stadia and cloud gaming, because that is exactly what he said. Have I missed certain bits out? Have I used certain words in that statement to suit my narrative? Yes. And that is the point. But everything in that is factually or is based on what was said in the same article that Tassi uses to say GTA 5 publisher CEO says what everyone is thinking about Google Stadia. Yeah. He also, unfortunately, not everybody else is thinking that Xbox Game Pass is not a good business model. But he says that. The other thing he's saying is cloud gaming using the Geforce Now method of business is not a good business model. Not everybody else is thinking that.
Exactly.
But he doesn't put it in his article because it doesn't fit his narrative.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. So I think this is a great time to segue into I think our next part, which is, we talked about it, the fall of journalism, or gaming journalism, rather. I want to show you some articles, Clive. I want to get your thoughts on them because, again, you've knocked it out of the park with your analysis of what people have done for, again, the Katamari journalism with this story. One person, they just get caught up in the ball. I want to get your thoughts on how everybody's phrased this wrong. Like, let's start here. Let's do this. Okay. So right here, let me remove this too, so people can see where this is coming from. Let's do this. Let's remove. There you go. All right. So we got, this is from GameSpot. This is the article that started it all. Google Stadia overpromised on what it could do, says Take2 CEO. Then we had Forbes. We got Paul Tassi. This is the infamous Paul Tassi article that just that Clive ripped to shreds, and really Forbes should be embarrassed about. Like, and I'm done I don't want to say I defended this guy, but I used to give him credit, and I'm done giving this guy credit because you got to be you got to be able to do what you're supposed to do. You got to be responsible.
Senior contributor.
Senior contributor.
Senior. He should be setting an example to the junior journalists and stuff.
Yeah,
he's the senior contributor.
And that needs to come to an end.
Can I just go back to that G-Spot?
GameSpot.
GameSpot, not G-Spot. So completely different there. Freudian slip. So the headline there, Google Stadia overpromised and what it could do, says Take2 CEO. Okay, you can kind of imply that that's what he's saying. I'll let that ride. But
you know what? But just to add, I got quotes here from the article. Why there's a reason why I have these articles here. But yeah, like you said, off the title alone, it wouldn't make me jump off the window off the title alone. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But the sub headline there, is that Strauss Zelnick says the promise of Stadia was an expanded market, but it fell short of that ambition. That is absolutely not what he said.
Yes.
He said prior to Stadia launching, he didn't think, so let's use their language, he didn't think the market would be expanded 10-fold or 20-fold. That's what he said. So he didn't think that the business, that it was game-changing in terms of the business. Okay, that's what he said prior to Stadia launching. Strauss Zelnick says the promise of Stadia was an expanded market. He did not say the promise of Stadia was an expanded market. He did not say that, but that it fell short of the ambition. So he didn't say, he sets it up. Stadia. So what he's saying here, or this, just in this headline, Stadia said that they would expand the market. Well, actually, he does say every time you broaden distribution. So they have expanded the market. Stadia never said they're going to expand the market 10 or 20-fold. Okay. And Zelnick saying, yes, you'll broaden the market and we'll go after that marketplace. But in his view, he didn't think cloud gaming was going to increase it 10 or 20-fold.
Yeah.
The promise of Stadia was an expanded market. The promise, so it has expanded the market. And Strauss Zelnick says, when you broaden, he uses the word broaden the distribution. Yeah. Another word of that is expand the market. Strauss Zelnick says, absolutely. That's why we supported Stadia, because it's broadening the distribution, but that it fell short of the ambition. So they've set it up, and then they said, which is wrong. They set it up. They set the conceit up wrong. It's almost a lie. Okay, it is incorrect, that first part of that statement. Yeah. And then they use it to go, but it fell short of that ambition. It never fell short of that ambition. And he never, and Strauss Zelnick never says it.
It is a lie.
Zelnick says, so you take out the promise of an expanded market, it says, Zelnick says, basically, Stadia fell short of the ambition. He never said that, but that is the premise of the article. And he never said that. Go and watch the video. He never says that.
Never says that. They're trying to play word ninjutsu the best way that they can, but they go well past the line, which is acceptable for reasonable journalism, even in the clickbait area. It's just a flat out lie. You know, it's just
they're making big stretches to link different bits and ignore other bits. I don't, of course. So the first headline, right, is a small leap. Okay, a small implied leap. Google Stadia overpromised on what it could do, says Take2 CEO. So he says he thinks there was an overpromising, and and therefore there was disappointment in the consumer's mind. Okay. So you could paraphrase that to say Google Stadia overpromised on what it could do. Okay, that's fine. That's a small leap. Yeah. The stuff underneath the subheadline is a massive leap. It's a misleap. You know, that is completely not what he said or even implied. That's the key thing. He didn't even imply that.
No. So here's the thing too. Even though, and we spoke about this, even though Clive, GameSpot started this, I don't look at GameSpot as the antithesis of financial journalism. No. I expect Forbes to be, and then we had Paul Tassi double down, and his comments were that I think were egregious. Where the second possibly larger problem is the model of Stadia itself. Stadia debuted without a free tier, meaning you had to pay a subscription to access a very tiny amount of free games to stream, but then pay. That absolutely makes no sense. It's a lie, and we've went back and forth with Paul so much about this that he shuts us out kind of in the article, like. what? It's absurd. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so he said he in his article, he says Zelnick is 100% correct about what went with Google Stadia, namely that it positioned itself as a service for a market that barely exists at all, hence its niche appeal. Okay, well, it's not really what he said.
What he says, exactly.
But so that's wrong anyway. But but the second thing he says, secondly, possibly the larger problem is the model of Stadia itself. And then he goes on saying, debuted without a free tier, as you said. Even with a free tier, then he goes on to say, even with the free tier arriving eventually, it still feels pretty weird to pay for individual games on a streaming service, which is disconnected from how we view streaming services in other forms of media. So, meanwhile, rival services like Microsoft Game Pass are right there for £10 a month. You get blah, blah, blah. When Game Pass inevitably combines with Xcloud, a more direct rival to Stadia in streaming space, it won't even be a contest at all at that point. So that's my point. Is so his first point. So he says Zelnick is 100% correct, and then he goes second, as if to say Zelnick's first point, and now Zelnick's second point, is that what Zelnick would like to see is, it doesn't make any sense for a streaming service not to be a all-you-can-eat subscription service. He's implying that that's what Zelnick said.
Yeah.
But Zelnick was absolutely clear on separating those two things, so there was no confusion in his audience's mind. Don't start thinking just because you think cloud gaming, you think Netflix, there are different models. Amazon Prime, you get some stuff free, you buy some stuff if you want, or you don't have to buy Amazon Prime, but you can still buy the stuff and keep it. That's closer to the Stadia model, and probably closer to the model that he's talking when that Strauss talks about when he talks about the intersection between the consumer and the publisher, where the publisher's getting something out of it and the consumer's getting something out of it. So so the point is that Tassi, though, is implying here that Zelnick made 2 points. And the second point is that it doesn't make any sense to have that you cannot disconnect somehow a streaming with an all-you-can-eat subscription service, which is completely the opposite of what Zelnick said.
It's a lie. It's a lie. So that's why the next one we say is in the chat, I'm dropping different hashtags. First, it was hashtag Gamespot lies, hashtag Forbes lies. Again, he tries to imply that the notions that he makes in his point 1 and his point 2 is what Strauss is saying. That is not what Strauss is saying, particularly as Clive illustrates point 2, that it's weird that game subscriptions and a game streaming service aren't mashed together. If he would have done the due diligence that we expect from someone of the ilk of Forbes, with the power of Forbes behind them, he would have listened to the whole damn clip. He would have found it first, listened to it, and realized that Strauss is against contorting the 2 for 1, and he's also against the Game Pass model, which is day and date services. He said that they toyed around with it, as Clive illustrated earlier, and it doesn't work for them. So Paul Tassi, on behalf of Forbes, is a liar. Next article. PC Gamer. Now we know they have an agenda. They hate, for some reason, they hate Stadia, but Stadia is trying to conjoin themselves with the PC community, and I think they're doing a good job at it. But here goes their article. Take2 CEO thinks Stadia overpromised. It wasn't the transformative tech he was expecting. Again, we have a situation, Clive, where the original article isn't horrible. However, it's the byline. Yeah, the byline in the byline is bad.
He never talked about. He never. So yes, he thinks that. So what Zelnick is saying is that the launch of Google Stadia was slow because he thinks there was some overpromising in the tech and some underdelivering in the consumer's mind. Okay, in the consumer's mind, and I've explained it about how the consumers have been paying attention, and part of that is Google's marketing not making sure they paid attention that the fact that we were going to roll it out. But that's not the point. The second here, the sub headline here is it wasn't the transformative tech he was expecting, which implies that somehow the tech fell short. But what he's talking about, Zelnick is talking about, is the business being transformative. He's not talking about the tech. He says cloud, game streaming is here, and he says he's very excited about it.
Yep.
So he is the tech. He's excited about, whether he's excited about Stadia tech, whatever. But I think he's talking about all. Geforce now works pretty well and is a good example of it. And Stadia, we all know, works amazing and it's brilliant. But but what he talks about not being a game changer is he's talking about, as I said before, it represents another distribution arm, which will fold. But in his mind, it was never, ever going to be a business distribution arm that increased sales by 10 or 20%. 10 or 20 times. Yeah. Right? That's what he's talking about. He's saying it was never, it wasn't. He's not, so it wasn't, it says here, it wasn't the transformative tech he was expecting. No, he was saying it was never going to be the transformative business model that everyone was expecting. It would just effectively be another revenue stream, which they would embrace. And that's from their business point of view. You can argue about that with Strauss Zelnick and have a debate about that. That's about business and the strategy and gaming going forward. That's a different piece. But in his mind, he made very clear that prior to Stadia launching, the concept of cloud gaming suddenly increasing your sales by 10 or 20 times was never going to be a reality. Stadia came along, and his views not changed on that. Not about the tech. Nothing about the tech.
Let me see. PC gamers. I want to make sure I get all these head tags out. So therefore, PCgamers.com, they're liars. They're liars.
So bear in mind that the headline and the subheadline are basically the premise on which the rest of the article stands. Okay. Yep. Well, I've just kicked the chair away from that. Just in that statement. Therefore, completely like a house of cards, the rest of I don't have to read the rest of the article will collapse. Now, sometimes you get, especially in like newspapers and tabloids, you'll get there used to be, I don't know how it works now, but you used to get where the sub-editor would write the headline and a different journalist would write the article. So that then the sub-journalist would just go scan through it and go, oh, how can we make this juicy? What's the headline? And then, and then you get things going, well, that's not quite what he's written. You can understand that. But here again, it's just they're really stretching to make. Yeah, it's just incorrect. That statement is an incorrect statement.
We got two more that I want to breeze through real quick before we get to the next section, which is we got two. Maybe they're bigger. They're not the biggest publications, but they're pretty much known. We got Extreme Tech here that says Take2 CEO says Stadia has been a disappointment. That would imply, Clive, that he was expecting more out of Stadia, which he made very clear in the Q&A that he wasn't. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
And exactly, he never said. He says, there was some disappointment in the consumer's mind. Okay, so yes, you could say, okay, they put here Take2 CEO says Stadia has been a disappointment. It implies that for Take2, Stadia is a complete disappointment. That is not what is said in the article.
Yep. And
he thinks it's slow. He says the launch, the Google Stadia is slow, and he thinks part of that is the mismatch between the expectation and the delivery in the consumer's mind. But he's not saying Stadia is a disappointment.
Yeah, in the context that they're trying to draw, and also
has been the keyword that
has been a disappointment.
Just do your grammar. Go to grammar school, right? Has been a disappointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
It was a disappointment at launch, or initially it was a disappointment, or it's not. It has been suggests it is a disappointment now. In the present, it has been a disappointment. It's not what he's saying, is it?
Here goes one of and beyond the title, here goes really one of the most peculiar statements in this article. So speaking at the Bernstein Annual Strategic Decisions Conference, Zelnick says the slow Stadia launch has been a disappointment to customers.
No, so that's two different things.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, it's not, he never says that the slow launch was a disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He says the Google Stadia launch has been slow.
Mm-hmm.
And then in his mind, in his opinion, and you can debate his opinion, and it's fair enough, he's saying the reason it was slow is he believes there may have been some over-promising and under-delivering in the consumer mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the consumer's expectations of what they thought they were going to get were not met, and hence, Google Stadia had a bit of a slow launch, and we've seen that. We've seen that, when it hasn't got this, it hasn't got that. So we've seen that, and that's fair enough, and that's his view. And he's just saying, in my view, the reason that Google Stadia has a bit of a slow launch is there was this mismatch.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not what you've just read there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of baloney.
Because ultimately he says Take2 support Stadia initially and will continue to support, as I've said before, and high quality cloud gaming services.
And they've shown that, Clive, right? For the simple fact that he says we started off with 3 titles. Now, someone in Take2's position, if they don't like the tech, they will yank their services. They showed it with GFN.
It's not exactly. I mean, it's not as though I could say, oh yeah, but they weren't happy. They'd just take.
Yeah, they weren't happy, but they're going to stay aboard.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. It would be they wouldn't. Yeah. Well, check out Geforce now.
Yeah, like they've signed these contracts at church, so Strauss Zelnick doesn't want to yank the service. He will never do that. No, he pulled his stuff off of Geforce faster than you could say VLC NBA 2K. So,
and in fairness to that, they didn't have any contracts in place, and that was probably the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Geforce Now's business model was flawed from the get-go.
Yep. Before we get into gaming news, I want to get to this is the most comical one. Screen Rant, which looking at their background, they're more of like a tabloid, like an Inquisitor or they can't be taken seriously, but hopefully people understand it. They say, like all of us, Take2 is disappointed with Google Stadia.
No, see, so Take2 is not disappointed with Stadia.
Mm-hmm.
He never said Take2 is disappointed with Stadia.
In Stadia.
In fact, even if he thought that. Even if he said, we've been really disappointed with Stadia. We put 3 titles on there and they've been absolutely crap. And I'm really pissed off about it. I'm really disappointed. Right. Even if he thought that, he wouldn't say it in effectively a pitch to equity investors. That's what he's talking about.
While he's
is the future business, future marketplace.
Yeah, that's what he said.
At the same time, he wouldn't overhype it. Which is what he's saying is trying to temper their expectations, generally. And that's why he said, I said it before, it's never going to be a game changer, or it's not going to be a game changer, or the launch of cloud streaming at the moment is never going to be a game changer for the business in the way that it will increase things by 10 or 20 times.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's nothing to do with Stadia, and he says Stadia launch has been slow, and then he tries to give a reason why he thinks that might be, which I've said, but that's not him being disappointed in Google Stadia.
Yeah.
So this is what we're seeing slowly is that the exaggeration, that poor facsimile of what was said, that Chinese whisper when a rumor becomes fact because it's repeated and reinforced and reinforced and repeated and repeated and repeated.
Absolutely. And Screen Rant, I mean, again, it's just salacious reporting from them. They're not to be taken seriously. And what doubles down on that point is you can say what you want about Strauss. You can think it's greedy tactics, but I mean, the guy's a philanthropist. He's very successful at it too. I mean, he's running CBS at the time of all this. Go to Zelnick. What is it? Zelnick Venture Group or something. .com. You'll see everything that they're affiliated with. And he knows that it would be a bad look to say, I'm disappointed in this, but yet we're continuing to invest in it. even though he yanked the services from I want to say the more commercially popular GFN. It's more commercially popular, but it's not the more viable service. So it wouldn't be a good look for him, and I don't think he's not that dumb. He didn't get to where he's at being an idiot.
Okay? No.
So, all right. So last but not least, I just want to go. So we've exposed all of these journalists about this, and Screen Rant. I don't even. Screen Rant is just salacious, but we exposed that PC Gamer, GameSpot, Forbes, and even Extreme Tech. They're all liars. They're all liars.
Well, they're all repeating the same lie. The lie
exactly.
The lie started somewhere.
Yep.
And because it seems to be a popular clickbaity narrative, every other media outlet has jumped onto it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Without doing their due diligence.
Absolutely.
And they've replicated the lie or the misinformation. And the more it's replicated, the more that misinformation it becomes wider of the truth.
Nope.
More separated from the truth, the more it's replicated.
Now let me get your thoughts on this. I don't think my goal here on this channel, and it may be separate of me, my goal here on this channel isn't actually to go rah for Stadia. I like Stadia. I like to share what I enjoy. But if you don't like Stadia, you're more than welcome to come on my channel. You're more than welcome to respond. I engage with people all the time. My issue is the facts, rather. When you lie about the platform to promote your agenda for the simple fact that you pull a Paul Tass and you don't want to do research and solidify your argument, that's when MM2K comes out, okay? And that's when I push back. So, again, the goal here is we don't expect the Paul Tassis, the Tom Warrens, and all those guys who've been wrong all over the place. I mean, we had Tom Warren using Destiny 2 as a litmus. Then we had Stadia not too long ago put out the most popular games, and Destiny 2 was nowhere to be found. You decimated.
Paul Tassi used the exact same argument in about Destiny 2 and the player numbers in his January article,
and he got exposed, and he still kept using it. I mean, this guy is buoyed. Then we got there's boardroom pressure, I think, from this guy. It's like you said, don't worry about it. I got the article coming. We're gonna get clicks, and then he, you know what I'm saying. And to try to buffer him this time, he acknowledged us, but it didn't work. It made matters worse. Then we had a Gadget. Remember when Engadget Cloud came out and said that Stadia sucks and GFN proves it, but then. Yeah. 2 days later, GFN started losing games. And then we infamously had Digital Foundry that came out and said all of their bibble babble, and then they had to retract it because they didn't do their due diligence. We're more educated.
But in fairness to Digital Foundry, they backtracked. Because they're forensic. Yeah. They looked at things forensically. Now, it didn't work for him for whatever technical reasons, which again, it struck somebody, whether it was id Software or whether it was Google that went to him and go, something's not quite right here because you shouldn't be getting them kind of results.
Yep.
Like we as all consumers and bystanders of Stadia going, I'm playing Doom Eternal and it ain't anything like he's saying.
Like this, yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. It's like being on ice. It's incredible, the movement, and it's so fast and in your face. So straight away, people who are in the know were thinking, "No, it's not quite right." Now they're big enough as an opinion leader that obviously either ID Software or Google went, "Wait a minute," and stepped in and said, "Maybe we can help you out." And being the sort of much more detailed forensic people that they are, Digital Foundry had another look and then came back and go, "Oh, actually, yeah, our bad. We made some mistakes." Now it's difficult, and you're not going to be fully go, "I was completely wrong," and Stadia's. You go, "Yeah, well, all right, I'm wrong a little bit, but that's human nature. We kind of get that." But that's the frustrating thing, is to say it's just this popular narrative. It's interesting because you think about Geforce now. If that had been Stadia. Right. If publishers had started pulling off, taking off. I was going to say pulling off, but there's keep it clean. Taking off titles from the service, the press would have been
it would be bananas.
Bombastic about it. Absolutely. Bombastic. And
there would be, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to the time, but there would be visuals. They would actually be holding visuals for Stadia, literally just to be assholes. Excuse my French. They would be doing that because they were like, oh yeah, this thing is dead. We're, pull the plug on it. I mean, they've already been doing. They're up on that doorstep right now, Clive. But yeah, if you would have reversed the roles and had GFN's offerings and gave them to Stadia and vice versa, it would be a completely different story in my mind. What do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like just to say, just to reinforce what you said earlier, about Stadia, it's not for everybody. Yeah, I get that. I am. I can't be. Well, I've got myself a reasonably decent gaming PC now, but I didn't get it for gaming. I got it to do this kind of stuff, content creation. Ultimately. But I've always avoided doing that because they've been very expensive to get a gaming PC. I've not been into gaming PC. I'm not a gaming PC. I don't like using, keyboard and mouse. I'm a console guy. I always have been. I like consoles. It's easy. You buy a game, put it in, it works. I don't have to tweak, go into the settings and tweak the graphics card, update my graphics card. It just works, because I'm lazy like that. I just want to be entertained, I'll get the product, put it in the machine or whatever it is, or download it. I just want it to play, and that's what console, and play it with a controller, and that's what console offers me. And Stadia offers me effectively a virtual console, and I just love that concept. The fact that you don't have to have a box under your telly and all that. So that's, for me, it's a great fit. Okay. Now, if I was a PC gamer and I had a shared load of games on Steam or something like that, then but it was fed up of spending loads of money. Again, it's this kind of is a sort of strange market. Usually, people who are into PC gamers are the sort of people who want to keep upgrading their PC. But what GeForce Now offers is saying you don't have to do that anymore. We'll give you this, top card with RTX on it and all that kind of stuff, and you can play all your games that you own in your Steam library. Now, if you're one of those people that has, then maybe then that's a great model for you. And it's quite good in that regard. And there's 2,000, according to Layman Gaming, whatever, those kind of stupid Aussie idiots, there's 2,000 games there waiting for you. If you've bought 2,000 games on PC, good luck to you, mate. Well done. GeForce Now is perhaps your thing, and that's fine. So I'm not here to say GeForce Now is rubbish. What I'm saying is it's horses for courses, and and Stadia is the right fit for me. It may not be the right fit for anybody else. But to say Stadia doesn't work or it's laggy or that is wrong. If you have what they need you to have, it will work. And if it doesn't, there's something wrong with the network within your house. So no, if you don't have the internet speeds, then you're not really doing very much at all. You're probably not even watching Netflix, to be honest, because it's not that high, the bar.
Exactly.
It will work. Now, yes, could be some network issues in your house and stuff, and it'd be useful if Stadia outlined that for those that it didn't work out of the box. What are you trying to play it in your garden for? 2.4 gigahertz. You've got to be near to the, if you're going to play it over there, but ideally wire yourself in. That's just surely you want to give the maximum experience to yourself, don't you? I mean, that's just common sense. But so that's the annoying thing. We know Stadia works, and we know GeForce Now works, and they're two different models for two different marketplaces, and you find the one that suits you. And if you have a massive library of PC games, you know what? Maybe it doesn't make sense for you to buy all the games again. But that doesn't say that Stadia is rubbish. And that's the point. A lot of these YouTubers especially are PC gamers who don't quite get Stadia. Well, I've got all my games on PC. Well, great. Play your games on PC. That's fine. No one's going to come to your house and take your PC games away. That's fine. But not everybody has a gaming PC. Or not everybody has like a console. And what Stadia offers is them an opportunity to play games at really high fidelity without having a PC. And for them, it would make perfect sense. So they're different products for different people. Now, yes, they're obviously in the Venn diagram of like, like I've got an Xbox One X, and, I know other people have got gaming PCs and Stadia, and they love the tech, and that's all fine. But generally, yeah, you could be in two different camps and say, actually, GeForce Now is for me, actually Stadia is for me, and that's fine. It's whatever works for you. But both systems work. They just have different appeals, and they serve a different marketplace.
Yep. Perfect. Perfectly put. Before we close out, I just wanted to respond, and I'm sorry, guys. We I know Stadia Source is about to go live soon, so
sorry, Stadia Source.
I don't want to run over them.
But
I did want to address Phoenix. Right, he said, "MM2K, you should respond to all YouTubers who don't know the facts or state the facts." I would assume about Stadia, and the reason why I would say it's not worth it, and the reason why I say it's not worth it is because Clive perfectly illustrated this. They're doing this for clicks. There is nothing that I can say that's going to change this. They're putting food on their tables with this. Is it right that they're doing this? No, but they could care less what we think. They could care less about facts. There is no getting through to them. There is an agenda there.
They're giving their audience what their audience wants to hear. That's the key thing. In the same way, we go there and we go, what?
Yeah, exactly. And by us,
sorry, just say, Phoenix, the amount of times I've written a long, detailed essay out in these comments and then read it back and thought, they're not interested in me revealing forensically the detail and the facts and the truth. This is all a waste of my time. Delete. And then I decide, the best thing to do is when it comes up in my algorithms and it says, do you want to see more of Yong Yi? No, don't show me anything from this channel, because the guy is an idiot.
Yeah. I've unfollowed, and I don't even, I'll pick with him here and there, but we've gone into a point to where the platform is here. It's going to be here to stay. The success that it does will depend upon Google's job of gaining mind share. That's not my job to help them get successful. My job is
game. It's a long game. They're building, and you'll see an event. As I said before, sorry to butt in there, but just as I said before, there'll be a point in which stage is just a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
It's just a thing.
Nobody's questioning, what is this weird thing? Does it make sense? It's just a thing. Yeah. You'll see it on TVs, like you buy your Sony TV with your Android TV app, built into it. Oh, play some game. It's just like, do you want to watch Netflix, or do you want to do some Stadia? I'll do some Stadia. Okay.
Exactly.
It's just a thing that exists.
Yep.
And nobody questions it. And it becomes everyday life.
It'll be like going in the freezer and grabbing a Hot Pocket. There will be no pizza wars. It'll just be like, oh, you want a Hot Pocket? Yeah, okay. And then they're all going to be like that, because streaming is the future. Is it going to? We said it's the future? Did we say that the streaming is 12 midnight? No, we didn't say that. So, but with that said, Clive, I want to thank you so much, man. I mean, look, and to Phoenix's point, we've tried so hard to fight the narrative, right? And sometimes I think we've wasted time fighting against the everyday Joe Schmo out on Twitter and even the clickbait artists. But I think it's a valiant fight against the people, the publication. Somebody said earlier in the chat, Paul Tassi has tens of thousands of followers, so he has influence. And by you doing this, Clive, you really push back on that influence. And really, we're on Broadband Bullies. We're going to write it. We're going to post your article, which demonstrates how easy it is to just put up a baby article and not show all the facts. And then we're going to follow up with a legitimate article on everything that Strauss Zelnick said. With that said, man, thank you so much for doing this, because this was needed, man. This was needed. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm just great. It got my goat. It grinded my gears, as they say. So I'm grateful for the platform I mentioned it on my Stadia Monday night chat, but I'm grateful to be given the opportunity to sort of to rant, because when there's certain things, some things I'm like, whatever, I'm not bothered. But then other things I'm like, hold my beer. Here we go. And you gave me that opportunity, and there's just it's so easy to do, because the facts are all there. It's so easy to dismantle Paul Tassi's article, because everything is there to to take it apart. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to come here, and and hopefully this, to the point that Phoenix is making there. We know that we don't get as many views as these other clickbaity people. It would be great if we did, and if we can just start picking away at the untruths and undermining these, or at least not undermining, holding to account to be a bit less lazy in the way they write, or a bit more honest.
Yeah,
and not miss important facts out, which means that your article is leaning completely to one side. Yeah, your article should be straight down the middle. Should be leaning to one side, or just because it suits your narrative, or you think you can get clickbait.
Absolutely.
And if we can hold the journalists to account to a certain degree for doing that, and improve their standards, and at least get them to sort of say, however, on the other hand, he did say this, however, he said this, just present all the facts, then it's a start. And hopefully, if people see this, they share this, they subscribe to you to see more of this stuff, because what I love your rants and stuff that you go on. It's like, it's taking me to the church, baby. I've said it before. Take me to the church if we're going there. And it's important that we keep doing this, because even though I said, we are so sort of microscopic on this giant whale, little tiny fish just chipping away, we serve a purpose. And eventually the whale kind of realizes, what's that irritant there? I've got to do something about that, And so, if people can share this and just let it be known, get it out there. If you've got any people who are sort of, using these articles to support their kind of weird Stadia views, then just go, wait a minute, check this out.
No, absolutely. No, thank you so much. It really, this is going to be eye-opening for many, and we're going to push this to many people as possible, because it's based upon facts. Before we go, Clive, let people know where they can find you, what you're doing, my good friend.
Yeah, you can find me at YouTube, Clive Illenden. That's see my name there, ILLENDEN, YouTube / Clive Illenden. I do, apparently, according to my channel, it's gaming, tech, and life, apparently. And every Monday night, UK time, 10 p.m. UK time, I do the Stadia Monday night chat, where I wax lyrical about all things that Stadia related that week, where I try to inform, educate, and entertain.
Absolutely amazing.
And every Tuesday night, I'm with Rockstars on a separate channel. We do the Generation X Retro Gaming Club, which is couple of old guys talking about gaming in general,
old dirty blasters,
blasters, and retro gaming as well as current gaming, but from the perspective of the older gamer.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful, all wonderful content, and big ups to Adam, to Stadia Rocks. He was going to join us. He couldn't make it, and give Adam well wishes. He really wanted to make it, but he couldn't. And he let us know in the chat. I didn't want to disclose unless he was okay, but Adam wasn't feeling well. So give him well wishes. Thank you so much, Adam, because he's fighting a good fight too. And check my fellow old dirty blasters. Check them out. They do some wonderful stuff. So with that said, everybody, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had a lot of people in here, a lot of interested people. If you're watching this live or watching this on demand, please tweet this out. People have to know the truth. Hashtag Katamari journalism. It's sickening. It's repulsive, and it's disruptive to our fellow unsuspecting gamer, and it has to stop. Again, programming note: I will be on with Chase tomorrow. We're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's and talking to our agents to figure out when. We're going to follow up this discussion. We're going to talk a little bit more about Strauss Zelnick. But with all that said, thank you everybody for coming. Fantastic show, Clive. We're definitely going to have your ass back. Yeah, no ifs, ands, buts about it, Yeah. So thank you, my friend. With that said, you all have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.
Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me, I'm at all black truck. Oh, I'm not sorry.